how to answer the job interview question, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I'm going to give you the best answer for that. Now, this question is essentially two questions in one. It's the question, what are your strengths? And it's the question, what are your weaknesses? Or what's your greatest weakness? So it's like two questions in one. So it's going to take me a while to go through this. We're going to do this where we answer the strength question first, and then we're going to talk about how we answer the weakness question. So if you get asked, what are your strengths and weaknesses in a job interview or in any other context, or if you just get asked, what are your strengths? Or you get asked some version of that question. Like, for example, why should I hire you? That's another version of what are your strengths? Like why should I hire you? Presumably I hire you for your strengths. What are your strengths? What can you bring? Right? Sometimes the question, why do you want to work here? Is another version of that, depending on how they mean it. Okay? So let's go. Okay. So you get this question, what are your strengths? And you think, okay, I need to say something good about myself, right? Doesn't take a rocket surgeon to come up with that. So you say things that you think are really good about yourself. You say, oh yeah, I'm like a really, really fast worker and I work really fast and I never complain, right? And you think, oh, I'm saying great stuff about myself. Meanwhile, the recruiter hearing this is thinking, no, that's not what I wanted to hear. You're fast. Okay, I'm interpreting that as the type of person that doesn't do a great job. And here in this job, we need people that care about quality. Quality is number one. We don't really care how much time it takes. It has to be done right. So the fact that you're a super fast worker, that's not quite what we're looking for. Oh, and you never complain. Okay, well, that might not be good because we care about doing things right. And in order to do things right, you need to bring up things that are not working well, flaws in the system, flaws in the equipment, flaws in the process. We want people that when they spot this, they won't sweep it under the carpet. They'll bring it to our attention. So when I hear you say, I never complain, that's kind of not what we're looking for. We're looking for someone who will speak up and bring a flaw or something that's not working very well to our attention so we can fix it. So I'm sorry. I don't think you're really going to work out for this job. You see what happened there? You gave something that you thought was good, but it wasn't what the recruiter thought was good. Weird, huh? That's why this question is a challenge, because it's very easy to say something about yourself that you think is great. How do you know what the recruiter will think is great? You don't know the recruiter. You don't know how they think. You don't know what they're looking for beyond the job description. Okay? So this is the challenge of this question. Let's get into it. Okay. We talked about like strengths are relative. You might think it's a strength, but other people don't see it that way, and vice versa, right? Here's how you do this, okay? What do we know about the recruiter? What do we know about what they're looking for? Well, some of the things that they're looking for, they've told us in the job description. Usually in a section called requirements, they've said, we're looking for someone who has this education, we're looking for someone who has these skills, and we're looking for someone who has these experiences. You have 5 years experience in this, or you have experience operating a forklift, or whatever it is, right? They've already said that. So we know that they care about those particular things and that they would regard those as a strength if you have them, right? So when you get asked this question, what are your strengths? A good way to answer is you respond by going down the posted job requirements, because you know that they care about those things and they regard them as good. So when they say, tell me about your strengths, or what are your strengths, and you open your mouth and you start talking, all the stuff that you say is like resonating with them. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's good. No, that's good too. Yeah, we're looking for that. Oh, we're looking for that too, right? So that's how you answer this question, okay? You speak to the requirements. Now, there's a lot of sort of caveats to this I have to go into because they're based on questions I get. Like, for example, what if they said they're looking for something and it's a requirement, but I don't quite have that? Say they want 5 years experience in this thing, and I have 1 year experience in that thing, but not 5. Do I mention that? Do I not mention that? Like, how does that work? And this is what I'll say. If they've said in the job description that they need 5 years experience in this, and you only have 1 year, and you've stated that quite clearly on your application, right? So they see your resume, they see that you've only got 1 year experience in that, but they invite you to an interview anyway, that means that that thing is not really a requirement. It's a nice to have. It's not a deal breaker if you don't have 5 years experience, because they don't bring people down to interviews that on paper are just not qualified. What would be the point of that? It would be a waste of their time. It would be a waste of your time. Like, if you're just not qualified for it, hands down, what would be the point in talking to you, right? So the only people that they'll bring for an interview are people who are qualified on paper. On paper, it looks like you have all the skills you would need to do this job. Okay? So always remember that, okay? And they can say in a job description that this is a requirement when really it's not. Really, they're kind of flexible about that, right? Some things are requirements and some things are nice to haves. So if you ever go to a job interview and, you're worried that you're not qualified, don't be, because they've invited you down for an interview anyway after seeing your resume and your application, so you are qualified. You just don't know what they consider qualified. They're not sharing with you what's really required and what's kind of a nice to have, right? So let's say you only have 1 year. Here's what I would do, okay? If you're going to start answering this question, I would obviously start with the things that you have outright, so there's no issue. But when it comes to this requirement, there's no harm in saying, I have 1 year experience in this. And the only thing that they want to know is that that is not going to be an issue for you. So if you only have 1 year, that's fine. What they're looking for is maybe 5 years isn't really their real requirement, but they just want to make sure that that thing is not going to be an issue. So if you say something like, I only have 1 year experience in this, but in that 1 year, I've had to handle almost every type of situation you can ever imagine when it comes to doing that job or doing that thing. So I feel pretty comfortable I can handle almost any situation that would arise, something like that. And they go, okay, that's fair. Or you say something like, I've only been doing it for 1 year, but during that 1 year, I worked with people who were doing it for 20 years. They've been doing it for 20 years. And it wasn't like they were the senior and I was the junior. We handled all cases together on a rotating basis, and I held my own. So I'm not really too concerned about, being thrown anything that I won't know how to handle. I feel like I've seen it all, and I've worked with people that are very experienced in this, and I've picked up a lot of tips from them. So they hear this and they go, oh, okay, so that's not going to be an issue for you. You can do that fine. That's the takeaway. Okay? So that's what I would say. Now, if it's something that you don't have at all, you can say that, but if there's some way you can put their mind at ease and say like, well, I haven't done that, but I have done this, which is very similar. And I did that for quite a while, and I did a really good job, and I know the ins and outs of it. And so I don't really feel that this aspect of the responsibilities is going to be that much of a challenge for me. Something like that. All you have to do is put their mind at ease regarding the requirements if you don't have them outright. And they've demonstrated that that's certainly possible by the fact they've invited you down there anyway. So just remember that. Okay, I could go on, but hopefully that makes sense for how to answer the strength part of this question. Okay. Let's move on to the weakness part. because the question is, what are your strengths and weaknesses? So I've given you how to answer the strength part. Let's talk about the weakness part. Now, if you go to a job interview and they ask you, what are your weaknesses? I'm not even pointing at the right camera. What are your weaknesses? This can be a very tricky question. It's the king of trick questions in a job interview. See, recruiters are taught that, rightly so, that you have a sort of facade. You're trying to make a pitch for yourself. You're trying to sell yourself. And you're going to make yourself out to be this like amazing, flawless person that's the best employee who ever walked the earth, right? And one of the things a recruiter is tasked to do is to try and peel away the layers and find the real you, okay? They don't buy this idea that you're the greatest person who ever lived. They're thinking like, you must have flaws like everyone else, and I want to know what your flaws are. So we're going to test some of the things about you to see, how good you really are, right? Now, the easiest and laziest way of doing this is to just simply ask the candidate, so what are your weaknesses, right? What are those flaws that you're trying to hide so desperately from me? Now, if you, as a candidate, play into this, you'd say, oh, well, let me tell you, first of all, I'm a raging alcoholic. I think you need to know that. Secondly, I hate people, okay? I hate them, right? So, it's very important you need to know this because you will have to tiptoe around me once I'm in the workplace because I have a very violent temper. And once, you look at me the wrong way or something, you better watch out because I get violent and I can make myself a real nuisance, But that's just me, That's just who I am, and I refuse to apologize for it. That's not something you want to say, obviously, right? But the problem is that they ask you this direct pointed question, and a lot of people feel like they need to answer. They need to give full and complete information. And so you've just eliminated yourself. You've gone sort of off script and you've told them about bad things about you. And then that's a fatal flaw because you are giving a first impression. They don't know you. What would you think if you met someone for the first time and the first words out of their mouth was, I have a rotten temper, I have addictions, I have personality issues, I have issues with working with people, issues with communicating with people, and I'm in a terrible mood all the time. Like, what would you think of that person? Would you think, okay, right on, let's bake some brownies together, right? No, you would think like, okay, you're probably not the person we would want to go with, right? You get a bad first impression. Well, that's the situation. In a job interview, you're making a first impression. And if you say a whole bunch of negative things about yourself, you lose, okay? And instead, they hire another candidate who didn't say anything negative about themselves in a job interview. So as far as the recruiter knows, they don't have any negative things about them. So that's the problem with this question. That's why this question is a trap. Okay, so how do you answer the question without giving away all kinds of bad things that make a bad impression? Well, here's the deal. Okay, I just got to figure out what order I'm going to say this stuff in. Okay, let's get a few obvious things out of the way first. You can't do a few cliched things because you might not do job interviews all the time, but recruiters do them every day. This is their 9 to 5. Okay, so don't say I have no weaknesses. Okay, they've heard that and they know it's a lie. Everyone's got weaknesses and you're lying to them and they know that you're lying right to their face. That's not good. Don't say, what are your weaknesses? Oh, chocolate, kryptonite, chocolate flavored kryptonite. That's my weakness. They've heard it. They've heard it before. They do this for a living. Okay. Don't think that you're being so original and hilarious. It's like, yeah, I've heard that one. Okay. So that kind of backfires and they don't like people that just avoid the question or obfuscate it. They asked you it for a reason. They want an answer. Okay. A real answer. Don't dress up a strength as a weakness. Don't say, well, my biggest weakness is that I just work way too hard. My biggest weakness is that I'm just way too nice to everybody around me that needs my help. You know, it's like that is an obvious deflection. They don't buy that, okay? They ask the question to get an answer, not, a sort of kiss off. So those don't work, okay? You can't say those things. So how do we answer this? We have to give them something, but it can't be something that makes them think we're bad, like we give a bad first impression, okay? Here's what I recommend, okay? Think of something you do that you're proud of, like you work fast, or you're very meticulous, or you're very organized, or you're very warm and friendly to everyone around you. Like whatever it is, think of something, a trait you have that you're proud of, okay? Now, think of a side effect of that trait, okay? So you're warm and you're friendly to everyone around you, and you take time to have conversations and ask people how they're doing and all this. What could be the side effect of that? Well, maybe it takes you a while to get down to work, right? Other people, they come and they don't say anything to anyone. They they go right to their desk and they start working. You're the social butterfly. You're hanging out near the water cooler. You're talking to everyone in the office. It's 45 minutes before you get to your desk, right? Everyone loves you, but my God, get on with some work, So think of a thing that's great that you do, and think of the negative side effect of it, the trade-off, okay? Give them a trade-off. Give them an understandable side effect of something that's awesome, okay? And the way I recommend you do it is with this formula, okay? So basically good, bad, good, okay? So here's what you say. You start off with a good thing you do. Well, I'm an incredibly warm person that goes out of their way to build really strong, positive relationships with all my coworkers, with my boss, with any subordinates I have, and anyone around me, okay? I'm a pleasure to work with. Unfortunately, that sometimes has the effect of this. It maybe takes me a little while to get down to work, okay? So that's the weakness that you're talking about, right? What did I say? Good, bad, good. Now you have to give them a good thing. Now tell them how you fix it so it's not a problem. So, I don't know, you would say something like, well, but what I found is that if I stay a little bit late every day, say 10 minutes, I can easily match everyone else's workload in the office. So the fact that I'm building relationships, I'm talking to people, that never impacts the quantity or quality of my work. Something like that. I'm making this up off the top of my head. But good, bad, good. I do this thing that's great, but sometimes it can lead to this, okay? Negative side effect. But then I do this that completely fixes the problem, right? So at the end of this, the recruiter is not left with anything that you do that's really bad. You did give something bad, but they can't count it against you because you neutralize the effect of it. It's not a bullshit thing that isn't bad. It is bad, but you've given a fix. Now, over the course of giving this answer, you've told them two amazing things that you do. I build great relationships with everyone around me. I'm a pleasure to work with. Everyone loves having me as a resource. And I stay a little bit late every day, and I make sure that, all my work is done and I'm not, missing anything. So I'm as productive as every other employee or whatever. I've just said two amazing things about myself in the question where they were trying to trap you. So this is what I recommend. Okay? I could easily go on and give you other examples and stuff, but this is that. So when you get the question, what are your strengths and weaknesses? It's really these two questions. There's the strength part, there's the weakness part, and then you answer them back to back. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what I have to say about this.